Welcome to the Drinking Rethink, a podcast designed to help you take a fresh look at alcohol and the role it plays in your life. Whether you're starting to question your drinking habits or simply curious about making changes, this podcast offers a balanced perspective without the pressure of having to think you need to quit entirely.
In each episode, we dive into real conversations about the role of alcohol in your mind, body, and career. We explore topics like reducing stress without relying on alcohol, navigating social situations with ease, and finding satisfaction in making mindful choices. You'll hear relatable stories, expert insights, and practical tips to help you with your own drinking rethink. If you're a regular drinker, it's important to check in with a medical professional before making any big changes to your drinking patterns.
Hi there, and welcome to the Drinking Rethink. We're thrilled to have you here. I'm Kath, your co-host, an alcohol mindset coach and a former binge drinker, which I'll share a bit more with you later.
And I'm Chris, ex-corporate, ex-dependent drinker, and now change maker. We're your co-hosts, here to explore what rethinking alcohol means for each of us.
So whether you're here out of curiosity or because you're already rethinking your drinking, we've got insights, tips, and real-life stories that will support you. The Drinking Rethink is all about offering a fresh look at alcohol and the role it plays in our lives. And it's never about pressure or judgment, just finding what works best for each person in their lives.
Exactly. I think a lot of people hear rethinking alcohol and immediately think about sobriety or not having any choices. For us, rethinking alcohol is a chance to improve balance, clarity, and performance in life and work without necessarily having to go cold turkey. We'll dive into a lot of topics in future episodes, like handling stress without a drink, staying confident at social events, and even transforming work culture around drinking.
Yes, and today, to kick it off, we want to introduce ourselves a little more deeply. You know, why we're here, our stories, and how rethinking our drinking has impacted us personally and professionally.
So, Kath, on that note, to kick us off, you've got an incredible story and background. Why don't you take everyone through what's brought you here?
My journey with alcohol starts when I was 14 years old. I had, an experience with drinking, stole some alcohol out of my parents' cupboard, got really drunk with my best friend. There was something about the oblivion, the losing control that I actually really enjoyed. And, fast forward to 30 years later, I had what I would call a problematic binge drinking relationship with alcohol for decades. It was a relationship that I found hard to see as a problem because it had been so normalised, accepted, and sometimes celebrated in Australian culture, and one that I also saw celebrated in corporate culture. I worked in the PR and media industries for many years. And so for me, this is a really great opportunity to highlight my own personal experience with drinking, the issues that I saw in different phases of my life, and how at the age of 46, I was able to really take responsibility for my own drinking behaviour and launch into an alcohol-free lifestyle as the best choice for me. And I'm not saying that it's necessarily the best choice for everyone, but for me, moderation was very difficult given my patterns of binge drinking.
It sounds like, Kath, your drinking was a pretty regular routine, and it might not have been something you needed to or initially wanted to change.
It was definitely in my routine of weekends and socialising, for sure. It wasn't in my routine in terms of being a daily drinker or even sometimes not a weekly drinker. I was a person who would often take long breaks from alcohol. I'd take 30 days off 2 or 3 times a year. And that would justify to me that I didn't have a problem. I was using that to justify. And I hear this from many people, that those sober months can be used to justify to yourself that you don't have a problem, when actually I would binge drink before and after those months. And it really didn't change my behaviour with drinking.
That's what I love about your story and approach. It's not about extremes, but creating a shift to align more with who you want to be.
Absolutely. And I think you've hit the nail on the head. Who do you want to be? We talk about our relationship with alcohol, but it is actually connected with the relationship with ourselves. And that relationship changes over our lifetime. And I guess for me, when I got to 46, when I really made this decision to take an extended break from drinking for a period of time with no date to go back to drinking, that was a real shift for me, because in the past, there was always a date to go back to drinking. There was always a belief that alcohol had a role to play in my life and that I wasn't enough of a problem drinker to stop drinking. And when I embraced this opportunity to see what a life would be like, an alcohol-free life, and see that, just approach it with curiosity, that was a shift for me. And here I am 5.5 years later, still embracing and choosing my alcohol-free lifestyle each and every day.
Oh, that's so cool, Kath, and so relatable. I mean, so many people feel that social drinking is something that they have to keep going with. But everyone deserves to think about whether it aligns with who you want to be, especially long term.
Yeah, beautiful. I mean, I agree with you. It is so much around connecting with our own values and who we want to be in the world. And for me, I have found that changing my relationship with alcohol in this way has enabled me to align to those values more and to live a deeper, more meaningful and purposeful life, which has, led to a change in career. And here we are connecting and launching this podcast, which is so exciting. So enough about me. You'll hear more about my story. There's obviously other parts to my story that I haven't shared here. But Chris, let's hear about your story.
Thanks, Kath. Well, my background's a little bit different. I spent 20 years in the corporate world, mostly big financial institutions, banks, insurers, high pressure environments. And whilst I mostly enjoyed that career, there was this underlying pressure to always perform and to keep it together. Alcohol was a quick, easy escape at first, a way to unwind from the intense work days. But as time went on, it became something I leaned on quite heavily. I think it's like that for a lot of professionals, right? No matter what the industry. And when we're committed to our work, there's this chasing the light switch to be able to switch off. A cultural norm that drinking is part of your job. It's part of often our networking. It's part of the way that we bond with our teammates. It's there for every part of our work life, really. For me, it got to a point where my reliance or dependence on alcohol was starting to affect my work performance. It was hard to concentrate. My memory wasn't as sharp as it had been. And I just wasn't showing up as the person that I knew I could be. Eventually, for me, the tipping point for like a lot of people was the COVID lockdowns. That just meant that there was more time at home. The routine, which as we know is such a big factor for so many, went out the window. And that really put me into a pattern of daily drinking.
And I guess when you hit that pattern of daily drinking, did you realise that you were sort of at a breaking point then? And what was that first step that you took to start the change?
I always knew in the back of my mind that there was a pattern that had formed and that it was something I would likely need to face up to. But I certainly was not feeling ready to change or didn't even know how to go about it as well for a long time. What's often misunderstood is how much help, support, and options people have to make changes, especially with drinking. It's always, I think, typically seen as you either drink or you don't. But of course, there's a middle lane that can exist for a lot of people. And the relationship people can have with alcohol does not always need to lead to dependence or a crisis in their life. And they can still be happy and satisfied with it in their lives. For others, like me, I had to step back and look at the role alcohol was playing. We're not always the 20-year-olds we once were. And when you start to realize that life is not always going to be there, and then ask yourself, is this how I want it to look for the rest of it? The short answer to that for me was no. I didn't want that to be my life, and I wanted something better.
Yeah, amazing. And so where are you at now? And how did you get to where you are now?
Well, now I choose not to drink. It's my choice. And I've only got to that point with a lot of hard work and patience. It's also come about with a long period of self-reflection, meeting other people that have also tried to make the same change. I think there's a huge role community and group plays in all of this. I mean, when you realize that you're not the only person that may sometimes have a challenge with a drug like alcohol, it's a game changer. The other angle that really helped me was the science of the stuff, learning and giving myself the time to learn more about drinking and what was going on. What does it do to my brain? Why was I thinking the way I was thinking? How was it influencing my choices? And were those the choices that then aligned to my values? When you spend a bit of time working through all of that, it does start to get clearer as to where do you want to start heading. Personally, I learnt over time that my life is just better without it. But I will also say that choosing not to drink long term never felt like a possibility when I started any changes. And there's a real role to play for lots of people in just understanding and analyzing your drinking patterns well before you even think about how you're going to take action. Speaking of action, let's talk about what you, the listeners, can expect from listening to the Drinking Rethink. So, Kath, when we started planning this, we both knew we wanted this podcast to be a mix of practical advice, real stories, and tools that people can actually use.
Yes, Chris, exactly. There's no shortage of information out there, but we wanted to do something that feels like you're sitting down with friends and talking things through, that's real, authentic, and practically useful. So each episode will have a theme like managing stress without reaching for a drink, building confidence when you go out into social settings, either drinking less or without alcohol, or even just learning to say no and not feel guilty.
And not just tips, we're going to take you into the science and psychology behind alcohol's effects on our lives. It's empowering to know not just the what, but the why. Like why reducing alcohol can help improve things like your focus, your mood, and even your productivity at work. We'll dig into the changes that you can make around drinking that can have a real ripple effect in ways that you might not expect.
Yep, and we're also excited to bring in guest experts, people like mental health professionals, corporate leaders who've gone alcohol-free or changed their relationship with alcohol, and others with real-life stories to share around how they have rethought their drinking. These guests are here to give us that wider perspective and share insights on everything from how alcohol affects our mental clarity, anxiety, and physical health to ways we can navigate drinking both in our personal and professional lives.
We also want you to know that whatever your goals are, whether it's cutting back, going alcohol free for a period, or just learning more about mindful drinking, we're here to support you. You don't have to feel like you're committing to anything extreme or permanent. This is just about giving you the space to explore what feels right.
That's such an important point, Chris. I mean, everyone's journey is different, and what works for you may look totally different for someone else. Some of you might be aiming for moderation, while others are thinking about taking a break. Whatever the case, this is a space for discovery, curiosity, and growth, not judgment or pressure.
We'd also love to hear from you. Check out our Instagram at The Drinking Rethink and let us know what topics you'd love for us to cover. We're building a community and your input is part of that.
Exactly. We want all of you to walk away with something that you can try out in your own lives. That way you can start seeing the benefits of rethinking your drinking one step at a time. This is all about taking small steps. No one has to figure it all out at once. We're here to support you. So if you're ready to join us on this journey, we'd love for you to follow the podcast. Share it with a friend or colleague who might be interested, and be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Thanks so much for being here, and we'll catch you next time on The Drinking Rethink.